Hi, welcome back to the Parade Laps. This week we are talking about the Japanese Grand Prix, Suzuka, awesome track, some good results for some people, and a lot of special helmets and liveries. So lots to get into. What was your reaction of the race?
I thought it was an exciting start. And then there was, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but like stuff with the safety car, which kind of changed the race around in a lot of ways. But I did fall asleep quite a few times watching it because it was really early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the UK, our clocks changed that night
Yep.
also, which means that I thought the race was at 6 a.m., but really it felt like 5 a.m. because that was the actual time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was sort of watching and then sleeping and then watching and then coming back to it. So yeah, I think for me, probably the start and then the change up sort of during the race kind of stood out to me. And then the other thing was that we just had like less reliability issues from the first two, which sort of meant that we saw more of the teams and the cars and the racing.
Yeah, less retirements this time. It was a good one. It was exciting. Half of it was exciting, and then once it got into a groove, it was like, oh, okay, how many more laps? It was a bit of a mixed bag, but such a cool track, so it was still exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, shall we kick off with our podiums?
Yeah, my P3 was, I think, quite a scary moment in the race. It was Ollie's scare and the safety car, that crash that he had.
Mm,
And I put it at P3 because, in terms of making the podium, also because that was such a shock. And also last week we had spoken quite a bit about Ollie and the fact that, he had done so well in the first two races. He was like
mm,
fifth in the drivers' championship. We were hoping that he would actually do really well in Japan.
mm.
So that was just like the complete opposite of what we were hoping for when it came to him and his performance. And I'm so glad he's okay because that
Yeah,
was a scary crash. He was sort of he wasn't going around a corner, but then I think he was like behind
he was coming up to a corner.
he
Yeah.
coming up to a corner and then Colapinto was in front of him and then he had to just swerve to avoid and then went into the grass and then went into the barrier. But they said it was like 50 Gs. Like that's
Yeah.
how intense that crash was. And then I heard a lot of stuff in post-race interviews with like Carlos Sainz, especially talking about the fact that this is the type of racing accident that some of the drivers have been warning the FIA about with these new regs,
Mm.
specifically that something like this can happen. So, just highlighting that this is the thing they're worried about as drivers. And yeah, it also changed the course of the race
Big
after that.
time.
So once that safety car came out, we had Kimmy and Lewis who were in the front, and they benefited from not pitting and then pitting during the
Mm.
safety car, and a few others also at the back who were able to capitalize on that, like Lawson. I think Lawson ended up moving into the points almost as a result of that safety car. So yeah, it was just a big one, and it stood out in that race.
Yeah, it was a scary crash. It was just a bit of a freak accident. Like it just happened so quickly. Even watching the replays of it, I still can't really tell what happened. We were so like confident in the new rigs last episode. I was like, yeah, they're really good. But when you see the downsides of them, which I guess any regulation set would have them, but seeing this in practice, it was yeah, scary. So it'll be interesting to see if anything comes from it, like if enough feedback from the drivers that's been negative, if that will impact any decisions and changes, especially now since there's a break that they can sort of
Yeah.
take the time to properly process what happened. Yeah, and hopefully that won't happen again. But yeah, just a bit of a freak accident. So not good for Ollie. And yeah, he would have otherwise been having a really good race. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
disappointing.
Disappointing, but then also I guess maybe it's a good thing that obviously we're not doing the races in April because
Mm,
of everything that's going on in the Middle East, and they've canceled those two, which makes perfect sense. But it means that, also like someone like Ollie, who I think thankfully like no fractures or anything. I think he just hurt his knee was the
mm,
problem there. He'll have, additional time to kind of just rest and recover
yeah.
before going into the next ones.
That was your P3. my P3, you alluded to a little bit, was that Liam finished in the points again. And just wanted to highlight that he's having a good season so far. It's really nice to see him in qualifying. He's doing really well. And I said it last year when he first came in, like he's gonna have a really good season, Red Bull, and then he changed, but he's having a really good season. So I'm really pleased for him. They're both doing well in the V carbs. So I like to see it. And the V carb livery looked so cool this weekend. I loved it. So that was a highlight as well. They really get into it. And when they put in the extra effort with the livery and the cool team kits and all their socials match, they tend to round it out with having some points finishes. So yeah, I'm just happy for Liam. So back in the points. Happy.
Absolutely. Back in the points, I knew you'd be happy about that.
Yeah.
Especially also after last season, right? So I think
hmm
there's a couple of people and teams here who last season, it wasn't good for them and are now, starting off in a better way. I think VCarb it just is strong, right? So Liam and Arvid, Arvid the
hmm
rookie, we've also mentioned his performance, especially in the first race at Melbourne. I also noted him, Arvid, down because of qualifying, because he got into the top 10
hmm
for this one, and he knocked Max out. Like his time was the reason that Max was out, which was interesting. But yeah, they just seem to be pretty strong. And I actually heard one of the commentators mention like they should consider, we should actually put Max in the V carb and see what he can do in that car as opposed to the Red
hmm
Bull.
That
And
would be so cool.
would they just
I've
put him
always wanted to see him in another car.
exactly? So when we come back, like, could they just put Max in the V carb and let's see what happens with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly they're just as a team doing a lot better compared
Mm.
to last year.
They're just a strong team unit, it seems.
Do you think
Yeah.
that Hadjar is regretting regretting the fact that he's moved into the second seat at Red Bull already?
I don't know. I think he's doing pretty well. He finished 12th, so not an amazing race, but he's still having a good season. Once they figure out the car, I think he'll be away. Yeah, it must hurt when VCarb does better than Red Bull, especially like in qualifying when they're the ones knocking each other out. It's pretty funny, but I don't know. I think Hadjar will still have a decent season. And even if it's a bad season this year,
Yeah.
next year, once they've figured out some more things, then he'll probably be happy to be in the top team. Whether or not Max is still there, I don't know. That's one of the big rumors that he might just retire because he's not having a fun time. So we will see.
Yeah, we will see. So that was your P3,
Yes,
my P2, and I wonder if you have this on your podium also.
probably.
Probably might be your P1, I don't know. But Oscar Piastri, first race back in and first podium. He was
Woohoo.
finally able to race and he goes straight to second place. Amazing. I was so happy for him. I also wasn't expecting that. I think when we were sort of doing our predictions too, I was
Mm,
kind of maybe after China and how bad it was for McLaren, I kind of just discounted them and didn't actually think that they could get up there onto the podium and compete
hmm
against the Mercedes. It looked like it was sort of Ferrari Mercedes. But yeah, McLaren seemed to just take a step forward and be doing a lot better and having a competitive car that could fight Mercedes and Ferrari and just be in
hmm
there in the top places. And yeah, Oscar just did a really good job. That start where he lunged forward and went into the lead and he was
hmm
able to keep it. I think what we've seen previously is where the Ferraris have been good at the beginning and they've managed to get ahead, but then
hmm
Mercedes has caught them up and has overtaken them quite quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas with Oscar, he got ahead, he stayed ahead for a while, and then George overtook him, but Oscar quickly got the place back again and was
hmm
still in front of him. And I think up until that like pit stop and before the safety car, Piastri was kind of thinking that maybe he could even win the race, right? That there was talk about could he have actually just kept George behind him and won the race. So yeah, to go from not starting twice, not even doing the formation lap, to then looking at potentially a race win, that was just amazing for Oscar, and I was so happy.
It was really good. I loved this is on my podium as well. I loved his radio afterwards, and he was like, "Oh, it turns out we're pretty good, like when we start." So that was just so I don't know, so him, it was just cool. Yeah, it was the start that was just really impressive because I don't know, you're sort of like always sort of waiting to see if something goes wrong. And
Mm,
Kimmy had an awful start. He barely moved. I'd like to know how fast they're going when they're barely moving. Yeah, terrible start from him. George didn't have a good start, and Oscar was just off, and he was out of there. It was like go, like he reminded me of like a little kid that had stolen something and just sort of ran away with it. So I loved it. It was great. And then yeah, he held his own for quite a while. And then his radio messages were quite interesting when they were talking about must have been if they were going to come in for a pit stop to
mm,
change his tires, and he was sort of like, "Oh, we could sort of keep going to the end." And
yeah,
then a lap or so later, they said, "Do you want to do that?" And he's like, "Oh, why not?" Like he was pretty relaxed, it
yeah,
seemed, during it. So yeah, just really nice to see him back on the podium. He obviously finished higher than Lando, but he also just seemed more competitive than Lando. Full stop, I thought. Lando was in there. Where did he finish? He finished fifth, in front of Lewis. So yeah, Oscar just had a stronger
yeah,
weekend, it
yeah.
seemed. But yeah, they were a little bit of a surprise. Like even in qualifying, it's like, oh, okay, they're back. That's cool. Because yeah, I had also sort of thought that they wouldn't be up the top in the fight. So it was nice to see. But yeah,
Definitely. It
good on
was good.
Oscar.
Do you know, you just commented on Lando. I just feel more and more that like Lando's so relieved about last year.
Yeah.
And I actually think he's okay just like having a year where he takes it easy. I'm not saying he doesn't want another like World Drivers like championship, but I think he's actually after two stressful years, right? Because remember the year
Mm,
before this one, he was the second, he was battling Max, he was trying to get it.
mm-hmm.
And then just how stressful last year was to like finally get it. I think he's okay. Just like, being fifth or just knowing that like the Mercedes is like way ahead. So obviously,
Mm-hmm.
there's no chance of that. But I don't know if he'll start feeling slightly more pressure if Oscar like continuously gets podiums and he's finishing like fifth or whatever. Or
Yeah.
he's just like, you know what, actually, I'm good. I'm okay. It's sort of like an employee that has like done a very good job and now just wants
Yeah.
to take it easy and then we'll go
He's
back
got the
again.
bonus. He's ready to relax now.
Yeah.
Yeah, very valid point, I think. He doesn't seem happy with the car or anything or the rigs, but he's okay with laughing about it. He just seems to be kind of like going with the flow. He's selling his champion merch with the one on everything. Like he'll do that for a season and be quite content with that, I think.
I think he's just enjoying not having the pressure, and that
Yeah.
makes sense because I think living with that pressure and maybe we'll get into it when we chat about the Mercedes guys and
Mm.
everybody else. But yeah, that's what I think. But okay, that was my P2, which I thought
Hmm.
might be on your podium, but I don't know in what order. What
Hmm.
is your P2?
My P2 is the battle that was going on with Pierre and Max. It was awesome. Loved it. Pierre held Max off right until the end, but for maybe like 10 laps or so, it was the last stint because Pierre benefited from the safety car because he swapped to hard tires and got like a free pit stop from that. It seemed like Pierre had an advantage over Max, whether it was tires or just the car performance was better for Pierre, but it was just awesome to watch. Like it was some solid defending and just so funny to think about. Like Max, I would have hated to be GP in that moment, just of having Max like complaining that he couldn't get past. It was really nice to see some proper battling, and it went right down to the very last corner. So it was really exciting. Like Kimmy won, and that was great. And whoever like was on the podium was good, but the battle at the end
Yeah.
was Pierre and Max. So yeah, really cool. Got some more points, and the memes afterwards have been hilarious. Yeah, really, really fun. Poor Max though, that he's just having a bad time. So knocked out early in qualifying, and it was a stat that they said on the comms that it had been however many races since he hadn't been in Q1. So
Yeah.
it was quite a big deal.
It was a big
Um,
deal, yeah.
yeah, and it just kind of went downhill from there. Yeah. Cool to
Yeah.
watch though. Good for the fans.
Def
So
well, not if you're a Max fan.
no,
Yeah.
no, but they've had their
But
time.
they
They
have.
will have their time again. But
They will. I agree. That was one of my standouts. Not on my podium, but just a
hmm
point that I thought about Max and their battle with Pierre. And
hmm
Max said that I think the last race too, we were talking about it, or the one before, where his kind of expectation for the race was just that he would be trying to get ahead of the Alpine, or battle with the
yeah,
and then he had to retire the car that time, so he didn't even fulfill what he was thinking, but. That is kind of where they're at. And now you can see that, he's not even able to get ahead of the Alpine, when,
mm,
he's not retiring the car and he's battling till the end, which unfortunately is just where they're at the moment. And yeah, I saw some interviews with Max afterwards around just, I think he said something like in one of them, he was like, no, I'm not, I'm not saying no disrespect to like Alpine or like, what they've done, but it's just not, what historically they would have had in the past where they're trying to
yeah,
actually like battle an Alpine and sort of be more in the midfield battle as opposed to up front.
yeah. And that's the strange thing that Red Bull is part of the midfield now. Like
Hmm.
the front, the people at the front are Mercedes, Ferrari, and then a bit of a gap to McLaren.
Hmm.
And then, I mean, usually it would be Red Bull behind them, but I'm not sure if it is Red Bull behind
No, it's
McLaren.
actually, I think it's like Haas and
Haas.
VCarb maybe, and then
Yeah.
Red Bull, something like that.
Yeah.
Because I think I saw a meme also with Hadjar where he was being interviewed, and maybe I don't know if this was the latest table, but he said, or they have like the fourth fastest car, but it was actually the sixth in terms of the
Mm,
construction rankings. But maybe that's changed now after this race. So yeah,
yeah.
they're definitely like in the midfield with that car. It's
It's
very
very different.
different. Um, and also just, yeah, with Max, because he's been so strong at this track, right? In the past, he's
Yeah.
won like most of the races here
Yeah.
for a while, so that's gotta hurt. But I feel like that's just a normal roller coaster that every driver has to go through in their career, right?
I
You're
think so.
either
Yeah.
up or you're down, like
Yeah.
or you it just depends on the time and who's got the better car. And at some point it was Red Bull, it was Mercedes, then it was Red Bull, then it was McLaren,
hmm
and now maybe it's Mercedes again. And so, yeah, that's just how this world operates. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of things among fans saying, oh no, dominance will bore fans. And then, Max fans saying, but yeah, he needs to move like teams, potentially if he wants to try and keep
Yeah.
being in a faster car, or ride it out, right? It's just one of those things.
I saw that Damon Hill made a comment about that, saying that George's seat is temporary. George is always temporary. That Kimi is like the guy that Toto wants long term. So if Max were to be keen on a Mercedes seat, George would be given the flick, which is sucky as for George, especially if he thinks this is my championship. Like
Yeah,
he's been forecasted a championship,
yeah.
but he might get booted out of his seat after getting it, maybe. I would like to see George go to Aston eventually. I think I can just imagine him in the Aston Green and very British, and I think he'd like it. But Max at Mercedes, I don't think I can picture. So I don't know. Where would Max go if not there?
I think that's the thing, though. You can't really picture Max anywhere else but Red Bull because he is so, that's
Red
like,
Bull.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Red Bull is Max, Max is Red Bull, and so that makes it very difficult. So that was your P2.
P2.
My P1 was George versus Kimmy.
Mm-hmm.
We are definitely in for a battle now. If it stays Mercedes being super dominant, I don't think it's going to bore fans because I think that in a similar way to how we had Oscar and Lando last season, we actually are going to see sort of George and Kimmy this
Yes.
season. So, Kimmy, like, well done to him. He's the youngest ever championship leader, like, ever,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And now I'm thinking, like, oh my gosh, like, Kimmy could do it, you know? And
He
that's the
could.
thing. That's the thing with momentum and like two in a row now. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe it wasn't just like complete luck. He could actually do this again and again. And if he keeps at it, he could end up leading, the championship later on in the year also. One thing I did was hoping for last time that we spoke about was I was hoping it would be one Mercedes and two other people, but I thought the two other people would be the two Ferraris. It was
Yeah,
one Ferrari and it was Oscar, but it was nice to
you
have
got it
two,
half right.
half right. It was
Yeah.
nice to have two different, like not just Mercedes one, two, right? So I think
Yeah.
that was interesting about it. But George was upset. Like we
Oh
were
yeah.
talking about how maybe last week it was maybe or 2 weeks it was more like not passive aggressive, but it was more like he was like outwardly like well done, but you could see that something was off. This
Yes.
weekend he was not happy about the situation. Obviously he
No.
felt like a lot of things went wrong for him in that race with the safety car. I think the setup with his car in qualifying because Kimi
Mm,
outqualified him. And there were other things. I think something to do with his like battery or power at certain points in the race. But I didn't see George in the team photo. When they do the photo, I was watching Ted's
mm,
notebook and he wasn't there. Usually, at least with McLaren, whatever happened between Lando and Oscar, they both
mm.
came there to do the team photo. And this one was just Kimmy. So George wasn't in that picture. And then
I
also I
haven't
saw
seen the photo. They're always a bit weird team photos, I think.
I also saw George just walking off like with his helmet on, like he didn't
Oh, that's a bad sign.
he hadn't taken it off.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting what happens between the two of them. It's
Hmm.
slightly a different dynamic to Lando and Oscar because we kind of expected Lando and Oscar to go head to head. They keep saying they
Hmm.
had two number one drivers and all of that.
Hmm.
This is less expected because really we everybody did think it was going to be George. And even though Kimmy's good, it kind of counted him out of it because he's just, he's still a rookie.
I think it'll be interesting, but I think it'll be very different to Oscar and Lando because it might have been because I just paid more attention to McLaren, but Oscar and Lando to me are bigger personalities than George and Kimmy. I think we see a
Mm,
lot of George, but we don't see much of Kimmy. All we know about him is that he's young and he's good. We see him on track, but I think in terms of any like storylines in the media about whatever rivalry they have, I think that will all be from George. I can't imagine Kimmy doing much in the
mm,
press, but I can imagine George doing a lot. So I think that will be an interesting dynamic as well. Like
yeah.
that could also just be having been in Formula One for longer. George knows how to play things. Like last year when it was the lack of respect, the like whole thing with Max, that was him asking to be asked that question so that he could get that answer out. So that will be interesting. Mercedes definitely is going to be a bit awkward. Nice. Okay, good P1. My P1 was your P2, and it was that Oscar was on the podium. So don't have to say too much more. Just very happy for him. The race start was amazing, and yeah, the radio afterwards, I just loved it. That's why it was P1. It was just we're pretty good when we start. And his Instagram caption, which he doesn't write, but his Instagram caption was really good. It was like first laps, first podium or something like that, which is pretty cool.
That,
um,
that's basically what it was, right?
it
First time
was,
out,
yeah,
and then he got his podium. That's yeah,
yeah.
first race, first
So
podium. Yeah.
yeah, he's got a 100% podium rate for races that he has started this season, which is my new favorite fact now.
And I thought it was also nice that he was driver of the day, right? So
Yes, that
people
was
voted
nice.
voted for that for him. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
again not much to say on it because that was my P2. So yeah, definitely agree and happy for Oscar. So okay,
What is your meme of the week?
my meme relates to my P1, and it's about George and Kimmy. And it's this one where, there was that meme with the kid who was kind of like angry, but he was like, congrats, happy for you, nice.
Yeah.
And it's just with sort of George looking a bit angry while he says, congrats, happy for you, nice. And that was Russell after Kimmy won another race.
My meme is the like one from the Flash of the peace sign on the grave. And on the gravestone, it has Red Bull Racing and Racing Bulls as P6 and 7 in the constructors.
Hmm.
And then the peace sign, like making fun of them, is Haas in P4 and Alpine in P5. It just says constructors standings 2026. So
Wow.
I loved that. I had a good giggle when I saw that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Next race is Miami, which always has special liveries and all sorts. Hopefully, the carb does another one. What are you thinking about Miami?
Well, I'm really curious to know what drivers parade they're gonna have
Oh,
because
yeah,
remember
yeah.
Miami's kind of like I guess famous in a way for having those cool drivers parades after the
Hmm.
Lego one, which
Yeah.
was like the best one ever and all the drivers liked it. So I'm
Hmm.
curious as to what they're gonna do. I was wondering if it was going to be like maybe Mario Kart related, but it might be a bit late now because obviously you had the stars of like this Mario movie that's coming
Yeah.
out at the race. There's all this talk about how the new regs are like Mario, playing Mario Kart, and I
Hmm.
was like, I wonder if it's going to be related to that in some way.
There were some fans with mushrooms like on sticks in the crowd, which were quite cool.
Wow.
Little
Uh,
power-ups.
exactly. So I don't know if it's going to be some version of that. But yeah, I think I expect McLaren to be pretty strong because it
Hmm.
seems like they've just raised the bar already. And then I guess with a month, like what more can they do in terms of getting ahead? Oscar seems to be in a really good place. Like I'm really curious, and he seems he's hungry for it, right? Like he really wants to be winning races and.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just expect them to take a leap forward. And then I'm curious to see if Red Bull has anything to give Max, right, for
Yeah.
the race in terms of just improvement. Yeah, those are the things I'm thinking about. What about you?
I think Miami will be interesting because I'm expecting it to be quite different. We've got quite a break now, a
Mm,
few weeks off where car development is allowed to happen. So, for everyone except Mercedes, that's really good news. What can be achieved in that amount of time, I'm not sure, but I'd imagine it will be a little bit different in Miami. I still think Mercedes is probably going to have the upper edge, but maybe Ferrari will be like much closer to them now, or if not even. So I'd like to see a Charles win in Miami. I'm gonna put that's gonna be my prediction. I want Charles to win, because I feel like Ferrari's gonna be better. I would like to see McLaren being good again. So maybe Oscar on the podium also. Maybe a wild thing would be no Mercedes on the podium. Mm. They're gonna like plummet in the rankings, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I like Miami. It's usually a fun race. So we will see.
wow, that is quite the podium, Sophie.
Something
Like
needs
I
to
want
happen.
exactly. Imagine. Yeah, let's see. Maybe
Yeah.
this rivalry between George and Kimmy heats up. I don't know what's
Hmm.
going to happen with the two of them, but yeah, maybe they might be no Mercedes on the podium, and it could be something very
Uh-huh.
different to what we are expecting.
I think we are bound to get a double DNF from Mercedes at some point, or a double disqualification, because I feel like someone's going to complain about something on the car and then they're going to be out
Yeah,
at some point in the season. But yeah, Miami should be good. We will see how it goes.
yeah. See you at the next one.